All right, welcome to your intro post for September's Explorations Month. I'm calling it Flexy, not Bendy, meaning we're really going to focus on just being flexible enough. And that means a lot of active flexibility drills. Some of these drills, or a lot of these drills, won't look like what most of us might think as being flexible. It'll look more like mobility drills, exercises, and dynamic warm up, all sorts of things other than a static passive hold, which is not, bad in itself, but we're going to run through all of the different types of stretching to increase your flexibility. And there's not going to be necessarily stretches, okay, that you're used to seeing. So rules of engagement, as usual, we're going through in this intro post any sort of do's and don'ts. And actually, this is as usual for everyone, so there really isn't much of a don't here, but we do have some pros and cons. The fact that this is for everyone, number one, it means we're going to focus on things that we don't need a lot of props for, or that if we do, it'll be easily something easily accessible, or around the house. The other thing is, I have to make it generalized since it's for everyone, so that we will miss out on some of the in-depth assessments, okay? But that's okay, because there's an upside to that downside. So when we're generalizing, we can just use this as not only practice certain moves, but an intro, right, to the variety of ways to increase our flexibility. And the idea of whether you're flexible or not flexible is going to is I'm debunking that right now. I went over this on a monologue spiel about flexibility. But I had mentioned that my biggest mistake was not doing my flexibility stretches at the end of a workout for years and years and years. And so I kept thinking, the mistake was that I kept thinking of flexibility as stretching, these long passive holds, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And I didn't have the patience for that or the time for that at the end of a workout oftentimes. Well, at the end of a workout is the best time to do any sort of static or passive hold. So once that passed, then I would not do any other flexibility training, because I thought, well, I missed that window, so now I have to wait until my next workout at the end of the workout, and then that would come, and I would again either be, run out of time, or be too lazy, or be too tired. Okay, but the saving grace to my mistake is that in actuality, during the normal course of my workouts, whether it was mobility, warm-ups, or actual exercises, there was a lot of elements. I do have a lot of elements of flexibility training built into those. So there's a lot of multitasking when we're doing active stretches with the strengthening and the mobility portion. And that makes sense, because mobility always comes first, and it's your strength and your stability, and then your flexibility. So your number one goal here is to be flexible enough only to support what it is that you're trying to do or that you need to do. So if you have a very inactive lifestyle, then you don't need any more flexibility than what you already have, right? To just sit down and get up, or to get in and out of the car, maybe walk up a flight of stairs. Now, the need for the flexibility, along with the mobility and the strength, keeps going up with the higher level of activity that you're doing. So of course, if you are an actual gymnast or circus performer or something like that, then you're going to need a lot more intentional focus on flexibility training. For the general public, we want to just focus on making sure we have enough flexibility to do the things that we want to do. Obviously, hopefully, you're not happy with an inactive lifestyle. You want to have a little more activity in your life and without being impeded? What about being able to give yourself your own pedicure or wash your feet, put on your socks, mobility and all of that in the bedroom? Um, or just playing with the kids, okay, playing with the dog, walking the dog. So as that increases, then your flexibility need will increase to a point, okay. Why it kind of makes sense that I cannot do an in-depth assessment is that it's very dependent on what it is that you need to do or you're trying to do or wanting to do, right? And because it would also include, you can't really assess flexibility without assessing mobility as well. So that just gets to be too much to do for a general exploration month. So we'll just have fun, doing like ballistic, dynamic, PNF, the self PNF, SMR, trigger therapy. So not just static holds, not just passive stretching, a lot of active stretching, with some load, with some assist, all sorts of different ways that we can incorporate stretching. And again, exercises, a lot of drills and exercises will indeed be our flexibility drills for the month. Okay, so the real purpose of this month is for you to have an exploration of the different ways to incorporate flexibility, so that you don't have to do what I did, think that it could only come after a workout or when you've warmed up your muscles, okay? Not so. So you could do these exercises, unless I tell you otherwise, at any point on its own, pre-workout, during workout, post-workout. So you could always get some sort of flexibility in. Now, going back to the fact that I cannot assess in detail, here's the quick and dirty way in which you're going to focus if you can't do everything, this is the way you're going to focus on the area that I say is, the focal point of the flexibility drill. If you are feeling like you have a mobility restriction in that same area, very likely you want to also focus on the flexibility in that same area of mobility restriction, okay? If you have pain in that area, especially, or you feel stiff, and especially if it's the kind of pain or stiffness where it makes you think, let me go stretch this out, and then you feel better when you stretch out, most likely that is not the area that you need to worry about for flexibility, but the actual source you need to work on for the strength and the mobility, okay? So overall, it's not going to hurt to hit every body part, okay? There are going to be up and down areas that we're going to focus on, but we're going to focus much more on the concepts, okay? So that you learn to feel what it's supposed to feel like, and work on some of the mechanics. Make sure that you're set up correctly to begin with. And the other benefit of having this sort of generalized month is that we get to also couple the flexibility training in this manner with a lot of alignment work in addition to the mobility and the strength. Okay, so remember, it's not so much the flexibility of your muscles that you're trying to force. It's you need to get your brain to buy in. It's your neuromuscular agreement or allowance. Okay, your brain needs to buy in that at this position of a stretch, you have the strength to hold yourself up, which is why, practices like gymnastics or calisthenics, where there's a lot of focus on being able to control your body and your body weight at every position and every angle, okay, often goes hand in hand with being ultra flexible. But if you don't need to be a gymnast, and if you don't need to learn back bends, you don't need to do the splits, you just want to really focus on making sure you're stretching correctly enough to where you can support what it is that you want to do, okay? So That all depends, okay? And of course, the feel good part should come into it, but you're also going to learn what is your in range and what is the sense of discomfort that you get comfortable with, and therefore push beyond that, okay? So, if you're strictly focused on flexibility for an increased stretch, kind of the more traditional way that people have thought of flexibility, it's not going to happen in a month. Okay, it's more important to be shorter and more consistent. So shorter times, um, not daily but consistent over the weeks, okay, for you to see an actual increase versus a temporary increase, okay, a permanent increase versus a temporary increase. All right, so whereas the mobility, you have both. You have immediate benefits, and then over time that you have permanent benefits. With the flexibility, it's very easy to feel better and then really not get any benefits, beyond that, because unless by doing the same thing, if your mechanics are wrong, if you don't have the strength, we're working a lot of isometrics, ballistic, dynamic, you name it, all of it, PNF, SMR, trigger point therapy, all the stuff that's going to retrain your brain to trust the strength that you have, which means we do have to make sure that we have strength. Okay, so, you know, it basically means you can't get away from actual work on making sure that your body is working and moving in the proper basis, okay, before you could really move on. Okay, so this is not about forcing yourself into a position. Yes, I admit something like yin yoga or long holds, they feel really good, but we really want to focus on an actual, functional flexibility. All right, it's another way to put when I say being just flexible enough. All right, I think that is about it. All right, so this is also the last expirations month indefinitely. So, 22 to 25 drills, holds, stretches, exercises having to do with flexibility training is what's going to occur this month, and then we'll close it out. In October, I'll have some free time to actually help people one-on-one.